The warning came on a dying research outpost floating on the edge of the galaxy, a place so old and forgotten that even the Council had stopped updating its files. Yet inside its rusting walls a handful of tired scientists still worked through the cold nights, studying deep space signals, cosmic fractures, and dark regions where stars flickered like candles ready to die. They lived with fear every day, because they knew what lurked in the empty corners of the galaxy. Creatures older than empires, predators older than memory, hunters so deadly that even mentioning their name caused silence in every species. They were called the Vraxel, the deadliest apex predators ever recorded, born from a world where survival meant killing everything that breathed. Their bodies were tall, skeletal, armored with living bone plates that shifted like blades. Their eyes could see through walls and darkness. Their hearing could detect a heartbeat from miles away. Their claws sliced through metal like paper. And the worst part was not their strength or speed, it was their hunger. The Vraxel did not fight for war or territory or power. They hunted for pleasure, for instinct, for the joy of fear from prey. They were a nightmare with a heartbeat. For thousands of years, no species survived their hunts. Entire civilizations vanished when the Vraxel arrived. Their attacks were always the same. Silence, shadows, then screams. The galaxy had legends, warnings, stories whispered to children. If the Vraxel mark your world, you run. But today, the outpost picked up a signal that froze the blood of everyone inside. 3 Vraxel warbroods, thousands of hunters, were moving silently toward a human colony known as Eden 5. At first the scientists refused to believe it. They replayed the scans again and again. They checked their instruments. They recalibrated satellites. But the truth only became clearer. The apex predators were hunting humans. Panic erupted inside the outpost instantly. One scientist dropped his datapad. Another whispered prayers in a trembling voice. A third sank into his chair staring at the red blinking signal like it was counting down to doom. No species survives the Vraxel, someone cried. Everyone dies. Everyone. But then another scientist spoke, voice shaking, eyes wide with the kind of fear that held a strange, fragile hope. No species, except one. Silence spread through the room as the realization settled over them like a storm. Humanity. Humans. The only species in the galaxy who never died quietly. The only species who did not run. The only species known for doing the impossible. The only species who had once, long ago, fought a Vraxel scout pack and won. The moment that truth surfaced, the fear in the room shifted into something different, something electric, something the Vraxel had never understood. Humans were not prey, and they were about to prove it again. The scientists sent the alert straight to Earth. It traveled through encrypted channels, through relay gates, through ancient Terran networks that hummed softly beneath their metal skin, until it reached the Terran Defense Command buried deep beneath the oceans of Earth. When Terran Command read the alert, the entire room went silent. Not even a breath dared to move. And then the air changed cold, sharp, heavy. The kind of cold that comes when something dangerous wakes up. Officers stood slowly. Admirals exchanged looks of grim recognition. Strategists stiffened. Even the AI systems paused their computations as if sensing something ancient. Because humans knew the Vraxel. They knew how they hunted. They knew how they killed. And they knew something the rest of the galaxy refused to believe. Predators were not unbeatable. Predators were predictable. Humanity did not panic. Humanity prepared. Protocols activated, lights flickered, alarms pulsed quietly instead of loudly. Because humans did not scream during danger. They sharpened their silence into a weapon. Across Earth, fleets powered on inside massive underground hangars. On Mars, black steel warships old as forgotten wars warmed their engines. On Titan, strange cloaked vessels built for hunts rather than battles emerged from shadowed caverns. And on Eden 5, the human colony marked for slaughter, something even stranger happened. The entire planet went quiet, not silent with fear, silent with preparation. Humans gathered their children calmly. They shut down streets quietly. They powered off their buildings. They turned off heat signatures. They erased footprints. Then they vanished into the forests, the mines, the shadows, the valleys, like ghosts moving into darkness. They did not run. They repositioned. They did not hide. They stalked. They did not tremble. They breathed slow, steady, controlled, like hunters waiting for prey. Because humanity had learned something long ago, something carved deep in their evolution, something older than language, older than fire, older than war. Humans survived predators by becoming predators. On Eden 5, the forests grew still. The wind stopped. The soil felt heavy, as if the planet itself sensed what was coming. And far above, in the dark of space, the Vraxel warbroods approached like a wave of living nightmares. 3 broods, each containing hundreds of hunters, their ships shaped like bone, their engines silent, their weapons humming with lethal energy. Inside their vessels, Vraxel warriors prepared their claws and sharpened their bone blades. They tasted fear in the air already, imagining the screams of weak prey. They did not know humans were waiting. They did not know humans were prepared. They did not know humanity had evolved for this moment. The Vraxel leader, a towering creature with spines that dripped with venom, scanned Eden 5's surface and snarled in confusion. No movement, he hissed. No fleeing. No panic. Strange prey. Another warrior clicked his mandibles. Perhaps they accepted death. The leader growled a deep, rumbling laugh. Then we feed quickly. But the moment the Vraxel descended, something strange happened. Their sensors glitched. Their vision blurred. Their hearing distorted. Heartbeats too slow. Heat signatures too calm. No prey should have heartbeats like that. No prey should have such steady breath. The Vraxel paused, confused, and in that moment of confusion, humanity smelled weakness. In a command room beneath Eden 5, a human colonel whispered to his team, "They're in position. Begin Phase 1. And the forest lit up. Not with fire, not with explosions, but with silence so thick and unnatural that even the Vraxel flinched. Silence created by human technology designed not for defense, but for hunting. The kind of silence that hides footfalls, hides movement, hides heartbeat, hides fear. The humans vanished completely. The Vraxel stirred restlessly. For the first time in centuries, they felt something they did not understand. Not danger, not confusion, not hunger, unease. Hunters were not supposed to feel uneasy. Hunters were supposed to feel powerful. But something inside the Vraxel instincts whispered faint warnings. Warnings their minds refused to believe. As the first brood spread into the forests, their leader tasted the air. He froze. No fear scent. No prey scent. Only stillness. He growled. "Where are they?" A human voice answered from the shadows, calm and cold. "Behind you." The Vraxel spun around but saw nothing. The shadows moved again, and another human voice drifted from the darkness. "You came hunting us?" The Vraxel raised their weapons, hissing in confusion. "But you forgot something." Another whisper came from the treetops. "Humans hunt back." Suddenly the forest erupted. Not with sound, but with movement so fast the predators barely understood it. Human traps triggered silently. Vines whipped like steel cables. Nets made from reflective fibers captured Vraxel warriors, and stun pulses cracked through the air. Humans struck from above, from below, from every side, never letting the predators see them, never letting them understand how they were being hunted. The Vraxel leader roared, but his roar echoed off empty trees. The humans weren't running. They were circling. They were tracking. They were closing in. And in that terrifying moment, the deadliest predator in the galaxy realized something that froze his blood. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was a mistake. Humanity was a hunter species pretending to be civilized. The Vraxel had hunted galaxies for thousands of years. They had hunted everything that moved. But today, they had chosen the wrong target. Today, they had awakened something older, deeper, darker. Something the galaxy had forgotten. The human instinct to survive by becoming the hunter. And as the forest swallowed the first Vraxel brood, humanity prepared for the real fight. The fight the predators never expected. The fight where apex would meet apex. and only one would walk away. The Vraxel entered the forests of Eden 5 like living weapons sharpened by 1,000 generations of killing, their bone armor glistening, their claws flexing eagerly, their senses tuned for weakness, fear, and panic. But what greeted them inside those shadowy woods was nothing like the prey they had devoured on countless worlds. The air was wrong, too still, too controlled, too calm. It carried no scent of terror, no sweat, no heartbeat racing in desperation. Instead, it carried something the Vraxel did not understand. Patience. Human patience. The predators moved deeper, clicking their mandibles, sniffing the air with growing irritation, because the forest felt alive in a way that made even their instincts twitch. Every step they took was answered by a soft whisper of movement behind them. Every breath they drew felt watched. Every shadow felt like eyes. And then it happened. The first warrior, a massive Vraxel with plated jaws, stepped forward and felt the ground shift. Before he could pull back, the earth beneath him split silently, dropping him into a deep pit lined with shock nets and electromagnetic snares. He roared, claws slashing wildly, but the nets tightened, pulsing electricity through his armored plates until his limbs froze. The others rushed to help, but before they reached him, a sharp metallic whistle sliced through the air. A second Vraxel jerked violently as a stealth harpoon wrapped in glowing microcable slammed into his chest, pinning him to a tree. His roar echoed through the forest, but died quickly when the cable tightened, constricting his lungs. The remaining hunters froze in disbelief. Prey did not do this. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey begged. But humans? Humans watched. Humans waited. Humans struck with intelligence, not desperation. The Vraxel leader narrowed his eyes, scanning the treetops. "Show yourselves, prey," he snarled. But the only answer was a soft tapping. 3 quiet clicks, evenly timed. Click, click, click. The Vraxel stiffened. That rhythm was not random. It was communication. It was a hunting signal. Humans were signaling each other. The leader growled, "Cowards hiding behind tricks." A low human voice whispered directly behind him. "Cold as winter. Calm as death. Tricks? No." The Vraxel spun but saw nothing. Only shadows. The voice came again, from his left. "This is preparation." Then from his right. "This is experience." Then from above. "This is what real hunters do." Panic, for the first time in Vraxel memory, rippled through the brood. The leader barked orders. "Spread out. Eyes sharp. Tear the forest apart." But even his voice carried the tremor of something unfamiliar. Human traps activated everywhere. Silent snares pulled Vraxel limbs upward. Sonic bursts disoriented their senses. Cloaked drones released neurofog that blurred their vision. One by one, Vraxel warriors fell, not to brute force but to precision. Humanity wasn't trying to overpower them. Humanity was dismantling them, studying their reactions, breaking their confidence. A young Vraxel, smaller than the rest, began trembling uncontrollably. "I smell them," he whispered. "Everywhere. They are everywhere." The leader slammed him with a bone-plated arm. "We are Apex. We do not fear prey." But before he could finish, a sharp metal spike wrapped in nanofiber cable shot from the darkness, slicing across his arm and cracking his armored plate. For the first time in centuries, the Vraxel leader bled. He stared at the wound in disbelief. The forest fell silent. Another human voice drifted through the trees, soft, mocking. "Apex!" The Vraxel leader roared, spinning wildly, claws shredding bark. "Face me!" he demanded. His roar echoed, but the humans did not oblige. Because humans didn't fight on enemy terms. Humans fought smart. Humans fought when the timing was perfect. Humans struck when the enemy was off balance. And the Vraxel were shaking. The leader staggered forward and stepped into a clearing, and froze. The ground beneath him shimmered with tiny silver particles. Before he could react, the entire clearing erupted in a low-frequency pulse. A shock wave of bright energy slammed into him, sending him crashing into the dirt, his armor cracking loudly. He screamed, but the pulse hit again, Then again, each hit perfectly calibrated not to kill but to disable. Because humans were not hunting to erase the Vraxel. They were hunting to break them. Out of the treeline, for human silhouettes appeared, silent, masked, cloaked in armor that reflected moonlight. They moved like shadows made of discipline and rage. The Vraxel leader tried to rise, but his limbs trembled. One of the humans knelt beside him, helmet glowing faintly. "Do you understand now?" the soldier asked quietly. "You came to hunt prey," the Vraxel hissed weakly. "You are prey." The soldier leaned closer. "No," he whispered. "We are the species that hunted predators before we had cities, before we had tools, before we had names." The forest thickened with tension. The leader's eyes widened as a human blade tapped his throat. Not cutting, just reminding him that humans held mercy only when they chose to. "Here's your mistake," the soldier continued. "You thought claws and teeth made you apex." He stood slowly, towering over the fallen predator. "Apex is not strength." His team surrounded the clearing, weapons raised but not firing. "Apex is adaptation." A second human spoke, voice laced with quiet fury. "Apex is intelligence." A third added, "Apex is unity." And the final soldier whispered, almost gently, "Apex is choosing to hunt back." The leader let out a low growl of disbelief, shaken to his core. "Humans are monsters." The first soldier exhaled slowly. "No," he said, "we're just tired of running." The Vraxel leader roared in defeat as another pulse fired, knocking him unconscious. The forest finally exhaled. The last few Vraxel survivors tried to flee, but humans blocked every path. Not killing, not torturing, simply capturing, breaking, teaching. Because humanity wanted the Vraxel to understand the truth. Humans were not the hunted, humans were the threat apex predators feared. And as the first brood fell completely, captured, contained, defeated, the Terran colonel monitoring the mission spoke softly into his communicator, voice filled with deadly calm. "Phase 1 complete. Bring in the Rangers. The real hunt begins now." The Vraxel invasion had not failed. It had walked into a trap, and humanity had only just started hunting. The second Vraxel brood landed on the opposite side of Eden 5 with confidence dripping from their armored bodies, unaware that their entire first brood had already fallen without firing a single meaningful strike. And as they emerged from their bone-shaped dropships, the ground beneath them trembled, not because of human traps this time, but because the planet itself had become unnervingly silent in a way no prey world in the galaxy had ever been before. There were no birds, no animals, no wind rustling leaves. The air felt thick, heavy, suffocating, as if Eden 5 itself held its breath. The Vraxel commander sniffed the air, expecting the sweet scent of prey fear, the tremor of hearts racing, the echo of bodies running, but nothing came. Not a single sign of panic. Not a single misplaced breath. Nothing but calm. And that calm scared the Vraxel in a way they could not understand. Apex predators were not built to question silence. They were built to break it. The commander snapped his mandibles in irritation, signaling his hunters to spread out across the strange human landscape. The Vraxel moved quickly, scanning buildings with their razor vision, slicing open doors, tearing apart furniture, searching for signs of weakness. But every home was empty. Too empty. Everything was cleaned, organized, prepared, like a battlefield, not a colony. A younger Vraxel warrior stepped forward, growling low. "Prey run. But these humans, they prepare." The commander hissed at him but did not disagree. He didn't like this world. The soil held human footprints, but they were evenly spaced, calm, not rushed. The abandoned kitchens held half-full mugs still warm, but not spilled. The colonists had not fled in panic. They had left in formation, like soldiers relocating from one battle zone to another. "Strange prey," one warrior muttered, but another, the oldest among them, tilted his head and whispered, "Not prey, something else." Before the commander could bark a command, a sharp metallic chime echoed from the treeline. Every Vraxel froze instantly, The sound was soft but deliberate, 3 tones perfectly spaced. Not random, not environmental, a signal. The old Vraxel's eyes widened. They are calling each other. The commander snarled. Impossible. Prey do not coordinate hunts. The old warrior swallowed a strange bitterness. These do. The Vraxel tightened their formations, scanning the shadows. But the shadows were watching back. They could feel it now, breathing, steady breathing, not from one direction, but from everywhere, above them, around them, beneath them. Humans were close. Humans were waiting. Humans were circling. And this time, the Vraxel felt something they had never tasted before. A faint, unpleasant, unsettling scent rising from their own bodies. Not human fear. Vraxel fear. The commander threw back his head and roared to drown that emotion out. A roar meant to shake prey hearts. But the forest did not react. The roar died quickly, dying into silence that swallowed it whole. Then, without warning, the ground beneath 3 Vraxel collapsed like a trapdoor, dropping them into narrow pits laced with reinforced carbon spikes and stun webs. They screamed, but their voices choked into static as human sound dampeners pulsed from below. The brood panicked, scattering. Their instincts screamed to retreat to their dropships, but the paths they remembered were gone. Human illusions shimmered across the landscape, distorting the terrain, turning clear paths into dead ends, open fields into mazes. The commander felt a wave of pure frustration crash through him. "Stop playing with us," he bellowed. A cold human voice answered from the shadows. "We're not playing." The commander struck blindly toward the voice, but his blade hit nothing. The humans weren't fighting like prey. They weren't even fighting like predators. They were fighting like entities that studied predators, understood predators, perfected ways to break predators. A chilling realization clawed its way into the commander's mind. Humans were not reacting to Vraxel tactics. Humans were anticipating them. "They know us," the old Vraxel whispered. "They know how we think." But the truth was far worse. Humans didn't just know how Vraxel thought. They knew how every predator thought. Because humans were the only species in the galaxy that evolved under constant predation. Humans learned to run from beasts larger than them, learned to hide from monsters stronger than them, learned to hunt creatures faster than them, learned to survive by becoming smarter than anything that tried to eat them. Humanity's oldest memories were carved in the teeth of predators. The Vraxel were just a new chapter. The second brood pushed forward, spread thin, nerves unsteady, their armor rattling not from movement but from shaking limbs. Suddenly, a loud snap sounded above them. Before they could react, nets dropped from the treetops, massive carbon fiber webs infused with microshock generators. The nets wrapped around Vraxel bodies instantly. Electricity surged. The hunters screamed violently, their bones rattling. As they struggled, human figures stepped out of the fog. This time they did not hide. They stood in full view, tall and silent, wearing predator mask helmets with glowing lenses that reflected Vraxel fear back at them. One soldier approached the writhing hunters slowly. "You invaded a human world," he said, voice calm, unreadable. "You think that makes us prey?" The commander spat. "Humans weak." The soldier tilted his head slightly, as if studying a strange creature. "Weak?" he whispered. "You mistake mercy for weakness." The soldier pressed a button on his wrist. Another electric pulse traveled through the nets, but this one didn't stun. It soothed, calming the Vraxel bodies, stopping their thrashing. The hunters were confused. Why were the humans not killing them? Why were they restraining them instead? Why, when humanity had every reason to wipe them out, did they choose control over death? The answer came when another human soldier approached carrying a small device that projected holograms across the forest floor. The images were Vraxel anatomy diagrams. Weak points, sensory blind spots, nerve clusters, everything. The old Vraxel stared at the holograms in horror. "They studied us," he whispered. The soldier crouched beside him. "Of course we did," he said quietly. "We study everything that hunts us." Fear pulsed through every Vraxel heart. They had never been studied. never been analyzed, never been hunted with strategy. But humanity didn't hunt with claws. Humanity hunted with knowledge. Why do you do this? One young Vraxel gasped. The soldier looked at him with a strange sadness. Because you came here thinking you were the top of the food chain. His voice hardened. But you're not. The forest shook again, but this time it was not human weapons. It was human movement. Hundreds of human rangers emerged from the trees in perfect formation, silent as death itself, their rifles lowered, their blades glinting, their armor shifting color with every step. They formed a ring around the trapped Vraxel brood. Not to kill, to corner, to dominate, to teach. Humans were demonstrating a lesson no apex predator had ever experienced. Fear from below is prey. Fear from above is dominance. Fear from the shadows is humanity. The commander's breath hitched. For the first time in his life, he wanted to kneel. But humans did not demand surrender. They demanded understanding. A human commander stepped forward, tall, armored, unshaken by the sight of the legendary predators lying trapped before him. Listen carefully, he said, voice deep and final. Your mistake was believing we were prey. The entire forest seemed to lean into the moment. We are hunters, he finished. We always have been. The second brood broke. Their minds, their pride, their confidence broken completely. Humans didn't roar in victory. They didn't celebrate. They didn't brag. They simply tightened the nets, tagged the hunters with tracker implants, and prepared for Phase 3. Because the Vraxel invasion wasn't over, and humanity wasn't done hunting. The third Vraxel brood, the strongest, largest, most vicious of the invading force, descended onto Eden 5 expecting a battlefield covered with human corpses, expecting the triumphant roars of their fellow hunters, expecting the scent of victory from their brothers who had gone ahead, but instead they found a nightmare disguised as silence. The landing zone was deserted. The forest was still. The air, unnaturally cold. And for the first time in the Vraxel's bloody history, an entire brood felt the heavy pressure of a world watching them from every direction without showing a single movement. Their leader, Krailthun, the apex of the apex, stepped forward with claws sharp enough to cut starship hulls, his eyes scanning the wilderness. He expected movement, a weak heartbeat, a dying scream, but all he sensed was something deeply wrong. The silence wasn't the silence of prey hiding. It was the silence of hunters waiting. He snarled, trying to shake the feeling off, because Vraxel did not fear silence. They created silence. They ended noise. They were the end of sound itself. And yet, this silence felt like a threat, not a gift. Before he could give commands, one of his scouts emerged from the treeline dragging a broken Vraxel body, one of their own. A warrior from the first brood, battered, stunned. His armor cracked open like a shattered shell. The third brood stared in disbelief. Their warrior was still alive, but barely. His chest heaved. His eyes twitched. And when the scout dropped him on the ground, he pointed weakly at the forest and whispered a single trembling word. Humans. His voice cracked. They hunt. The entire brood stiffened. Never in Vraxel history had prey hunted them. Never had a surviving Vraxel returned broken. Something inside Krailthun's instincts screamed danger. Danger deeper than any battlefield he'd seen. He crouched beside the trembling warrior. How did you fall? He growled. But the broken Vraxel couldn't explain. His claws shook violently. His mandibles clattered. His voice was barely a whisper. They see in shadows. They move without sound. They know our steps. They know our breath. He couldn't finish. He collapsed. Krailthun rose slowly, a cold dread slithering into his bones. Find them, he snarled. Find the humans. Bring me their heads. The brood roared in agreement, but their roars died quickly when the forest answered back. Not with sound, but with movement. Every tree seemed to shift slightly. Every shadow deepened. Every patch of darkness grew thicker. A young warrior stepped forward and froze. Commander, he whispered. Something is watching us. Krailthun sniffed the air. Terror hit him like a blade. He smelled something no Vraxel had ever smelled before. Not fear. Not blood. Confidence. Human confidence. Vraxel prey never smelled like this. Prey smelled like panic. Prey smelled like chaos. Prey smelled like death coming. But humans? Humans smelled like predators who already won. Form defensive circle. Krailthun commanded. The brood moved instantly. Weapons raised. Claws ready. Eyes sharp. But even as they prepared for attack, something horrifying happened. Every communication device in their armor shut down. Their sensors blinked off. Their map screens blacked out. Human jammers activated, cutting the brood from each other and isolating them inside their own minds. The youngest Vraxel panicked, clawing at his helmet. "They blinded us," he screamed. Krailthun slapped him across the head. "Stand firm." But even he felt his heartbeat racing. Because humans weren't attacking. Humans were stalking. Suddenly, the first human strike hit. Not from the shadows this time, but from the sky. A silent drone, nearly invisible, dropped a pulse grenade. No light, no noise, no heat. Just a massive invisible shockwave that sent half the brood crashing to the ground. No blood spilled. No bones cracked. Humans didn't kill them. Because they weren't hunting for death. They were hunting for dominance. Krailthun roared to recover his position. "Find them! Spread out!" The brood obeyed, moving into the woods. But the moment they entered the treeline, the world changed. The forest became a labyrinth. Human holographic walls shifted reality around them. Pathways curved into dead ends. Entire landscapes bent into illusions. The Vraxel, creatures built for raw instinct, were helpless against the human manipulation of terrain. They began to lose direction, lose formation, lose control. One warrior growled, "This forest does not obey nature." Krailthun hissed back, "Because humans changed it." The brood moved again, slower now, nerves twitching. Leaves rustled behind them. Shadows crawled. A twig snapped. A breath exhaled. The predators spun around only to face emptiness. Then the voice came, a human voice. Soft, calm, too calm. "You should have stayed away." The brood spun wildly. Nothing there. Another voice whispered, "You shouldn't have hunted us." The brood flinched. Another voice, closer, colder. "You made a mistake." The youngest Vraxel broke, dropping his weapon, falling to his knees. "Where are they?" he screamed. His panic infected the brood. Krailthun lunged at him to knock sense back into his warrior. But then the forest lit up with small red dots. Not sensors. Not lasers. Human targeting systems. Hundreds of them. Every Vraxel in the clearing was marked. Krailthun froze mid-strike, staring at the glowing dot resting over his heart. One by one, the warriors realized the same thing. Humans had surrounded them, without a sound, without a heartbeat of warning. And the humans weren't breathing heavily. The humans weren't shaking. The humans weren't afraid. The humans were comfortable. Comfortable in the darkness. Comfortable hunting creatures that haunted galaxies. Comfortable facing the deadliest apex predators alive. A human soldier stepped out of the treeline, armor shifting colors, helmet glowing faintly. He spoke with cold, steady calm. "You walk into our world thinking we are prey. But prey do not study you." He stepped closer. "Prey do not anticipate you." Closer still. "Prey do not corner you." He raised his weapon not to shoot but to show control. "Predators do." Krailthun tried to roar, but no sound came out. His throat locked. His instincts broke. For the first time, the apex predator of thousands of star systems felt something more powerful than fear. The Vraxel Empire expected silence from their broods, but not this kind of silence. Heavy, suffocating, unnatural silence. Because when their command ship opened a channel to the warriors on Eden 5, they heard no roars, no battle cries, no victory chants, only static breathing and shaking voices, the kind of trembling whispers apex predators were never supposed to make. The commander of the Vraxel Armada, a massive creature named Zalvorith, listened with growing dread as faint transmissions bled through the comm line. "Humans everywhere. They wait in shadows? We cannot see them. We cannot smell them. Leader fallen traps everywhere. They know us. They know us. These weren't battle reports. These were confessions of fear. The kind predators make only when their instincts collapse. Zalvorith slammed his claws into the command table, cracking the metal in rage. Impossible, he roared. Humans are prey. Prey. But even as he shouted, he could hear something in the background of the comm line, breathing. Not Vraxel breathing. Slow, controlled, steady human breathing. And then, as if the universe wanted to mock him, a human voice whispered through the static, cold and calm. Your hunters are learning. That was the moment Zalvorith understood. His broods weren't losing. They were being taught. He felt something he had not felt in centuries. An ancient fear deep in his chest. He barked orders to launch reinforcements, but before his fleet could initiate descent, a sharp proximity alarm exploded across the bridge. Red lights flashed. Officers hissed in confusion. Something is rising from the planet's surface. Zalvorith snarled. Show me. The screen lit up. His heart froze. They weren't human ships. They weren't human weapons. They weren't human drones. They were human hunters. Hundreds of human rangers, camouflaged in reflective armor, scaling cliffs, leaping across ravines, climbing trees with terrifying speed, advancing toward the last remaining Vraxel brood without a single weapon raised. They weren't attacking. They were closing in like wolves circling dying prey. The Vraxel brood leader on the ground, Krailthun, stared helplessly at the horizon as a wave of human shadows emerged from the forests, disciplined and silent. This wasn't a battle formation. It was a hunting circle. Humanity had perfected the ancient style of surrounding prey, something Vraxel themselves had invented ages ago. Seeing their own hunting tactic used against them shattered every shred of pride left in Krailthun's mind. He roared, but his voice cracked with despair instead of strength. Show yourselves, he begged, a sound he never imagined himself making. Fight us with honor. But honor was not a human weapon. Strategy was, intelligence was, adaptation was, and now vengeance was. Human soldiers stepped into the clearing, slowly, steadily, forming a ring around the defeated predators. No guns aimed, no blades lifted, just presence. Calm, merciless presence. One human stepped forward, helmet reflecting the trembling Vraxel leader's eyes. You want us to attack? The soldier asked quietly. Krailthun bared his teeth. Fight me, he whispered. End me. The soldier shook his head softly. Why? The question confused the Vraxel. The soldier continued. Death teaches nothing. He stepped closer. Fear teaches everything. Krailthun dropped to one knee. Not from injury. Not from exhaustion. From defeat of the soul. His warriors looked at him with wide, shaking eyes. We surrender, he whispered, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. He lifted his claws slowly in the air. Please, stop hunting us. Those words, spoken by the deadliest predators in the galaxy, traveled through the forest like a tidal wave of shame. Humanity did not cheer. Humanity did not celebrate. Humanity did not roar. Instead, the human commander stepped into the circle. He removed his helmet, revealing calm, steady eyes. Not cruel, not mocking, but deeply disappointed. Do you understand now? He asked. Krailthun nodded weakly, unable to look up. Humans, he whispered, voice breaking. You are not prey. The commander stepped even closer until their faces were inches apart. We were never prey, he said softly. We just didn't want to be predators. The forest fell silent. Even the trees seemed to listen. You forced our hand, the commander continued. You chose to hunt us. A long pause. Heavy. Devastating. So we showed you why that was a mistake. Krailthun lowered his head into the dirt, submitting fully, something no Vraxel had done for thousands of years. We were wrong, he whispered. We were blind. The human commander inhaled slowly, then activated a beacon. Drones descended, surrounding the captured predators. We aren't going to kill you, he said. We're going to send you back. Krailthun's eyes widened. Back? Why? The humans stepped back. The other rangers moved aside, creating a path. So your empire can learn, the commander said. So the galaxy can learn. His voice grew colder. So everyone understands what happens when apex predators hunt what hunts back. A chill ran through every Vraxel spine, because the humans weren't sending them back to spare them. They were sending them back to send a message. A warning. A truth. The return of the defeated Vraxel brood shook the galaxy in a way no war, no weapon, no empire ever had. Their transport ship limped through space, engines flickering, hull scarred by nothing physical. Only the weight of humiliation. As it drifted toward the Vraxel homeworld, the Empire's listening posts activated, expecting the triumphant roars of victorious hunters. But instead they heard silence. Thick, broken silence. Vraxel warriors never returned quiet. Vraxel warriors never bowed their heads. Vraxel warriors never looked away from a camera. But when the ship's doors opened on the landing platform, the crowd gasped. The mighty brood, creatures known for tearing armored beasts apart with their bare claws, stepped out shaking like frightened animals. Their armor was intact, their bodies barely injured, but their minds shattered, their pride a gone, their spirits a crushed. Supreme Warlord Zalvoreth stormed forward, eyes blazing. "What happened to you?" he snarled. No answer. He grabbed Krailthun, the brood leader, by the throat and lifted him. "Speak!" he roared. But for the first time in his life, Krailthun did not roar back. He did not fight. He did not bare his fangs. His voice was barely a whisper. "Humans." His throat tightened as if the word itself cut him. They hunted us." The crowd burst into confused growls. Zalvoreth shook him violently. "Impossible. Humans are weak." Krailthun's eyes flooded with a kind of fear no Vraxel had ever shown. "No," he whispered. "You don't understand. They knew our steps. They knew our instincts. They knew our hunting patterns. They waited in shadows that even our eyes could not read. They marked us like prey." His voice broke. "They made us feel helpless." Gasps echoed across the landing bay. Zalvoreth's grip loosened. Krailthun fell to his knees, not because he was thrown, but because he no longer had the strength to stand beneath the truth. "Humans did not fight for territory," he whispered. "They fought to teach us. They fought to show us what we never believed." He lifted his trembling claws. "Humans are not prey. Humans are hunters." The entire Vraxel Empire reeled. Their scientists replayed the recordings transmitted from the brood's armor. Shadows moving. Human targeting dots appearing like ghosts. The moment the Vraxel broke psychologically. The moment they begged. A historian hissed in disbelief. This is the first time in our recorded history a brood begged for mercy." A general, furious, slammed his tail against the floor. "We attack them. Now, we erase them." But Zalvoreth, who had once crushed planets with his armies, stared at the footage with growing horror. The humans did not overpower the Vraxel with brute strength. They did not overwhelm them with weapons. They overwhelmed them with intelligence, patience, adaptation, instinct. Everything the Vraxel believed only they possessed. Zalvoreth growled, but this time, the growl held fear. "If humans can do this without lifting a single blade, what will they do when we push them into a corner?" A quiet settled over the war room. A quiet thicker than any silence before. A quiet that made even the strongest warriors shift uneasily. Then another transmission played. A human voice. Calm, cold, controlled. "Return to your empire," the voice said. "Remember how we made you kneel. Remember how we made you fear the shadows. And remember, this was mercy." The entire Vraxel hall trembled. The elders hissed in disbelief. Mercy? Humans called this mercy? What would their wrath look like then? Krailthun raised his head with trembling eyes. "Commander," he whispered, "they let us live because they wanted us to carry a message." Zalvoreth stepped closer. "What message?" "Tears, not blood, not rage, but actual tears. formed in the defeated warrior's eyes. "Do not hunt humans," he whispered. "Do not provoke them. Do not test them." His voice cracked painfully. "They are something older, something deeper, something the galaxy forgot." He swallowed hard. "They are the apex." The hall fell into a terrified silence. Every Vraxel, every general, every scientist realized the truth. The galaxy's deadliest predators finally understood what they had awakened. And thousands of light-years away, on a human command ship, the Terran commander watched the Vraxel broadcast go viral across the galaxy. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply whispered, "Good. Let them learn." Because today, humanity hadn't won a battle. Humanity had reshaped fear itself. And the galaxy would never be the same again. Across the galaxy, fear spread faster than light. Every empire, every military, every council chamber replayed the same horrifying footage. Apex predators kneeling, trembling, confessing defeat to a species the galaxy once mocked as emotional, chaotic, too human. Worlds that once threatened Earth now whispered behind closed doors. Generals lowered their voices. Diplomats rechecked treaties. Even the ancient empires, the ones who believed they were gods of war, tightened their borders because the message humans sent through the Vraxel was not a warning. It was a promise. And while the galaxy drowned in fear, Earth remained silent. Not bragging, not celebrating, not threatening. Just silent, which terrified the galaxy even more. Silence from humans meant one thing: preparation. Meanwhile, the Vraxel Empire scrambled to rebuild their pride. Their war councils met day and night. Their scientists studied footage. Their generals screamed for retaliation. Yet deep inside, none of them had the courage to speak the truth out loud. They were afraid, truly afraid. But fear pushed them into stupidity. They launched a scouting fleet of 20 ships toward the human border, believing humans would hesitate. They wanted to measure human strength. They never made it. The moment the fleet crossed the border, the stars themselves seemed to distort. The Vraxel sensors malfunctioned. Their engines stalled. Their weapons jammed. For a full minute, nothing moved. Not ship, not soldier, not signal. And then the darkness in front of them formed into shape. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a drone. It was something else. Something older. Something built for one purpose: hunting. A human vessel emerged from the void, silent and black, its hull coated with adaptive camouflage that made it look like a living shadow. The Vraxel commander screamed, "Identify!" But the human ship sent no signal, no broadcast, no greeting. Instead, the hull parted open like the jaw of a beast, revealing thousands of small, silent pods. They launched no flames, no noise, no exhaust, just pure motion. The Vraxel ships panicked. Sensors couldn't track them. Radar failed. They tried firing blindly, but their weapons fired into empty space. Then, without a sound, the pods vanished. A heartbeat later, the Vraxel ships lost gravity. Soldiers floated helplessly. Consoles flickered. Weapons deactivated. It wasn't an attack. It was a demonstration. A soft, calm message appeared on every Vraxel screen. Leave. 2 letters. 1 breath. The galaxy's apex predators were told to leave like children caught misbehaving. The Vraxel commander snarled and attempted to fire missiles manually, but before he could hit the switch, something appeared behind him. Something impossible. A human soldier wearing stealth armor, uncloaked inside the bridge. Not breaking in. Not forcing entry. Standing there as if he had always been part of the room. The Vraxel officers froze mid-snarl. The human soldier walked forward slowly, placing a small device onto the captain's chair. "You crossed into our territory," he said softly, voice like ice sliding across stone. "This is your only mercy." The commander shrieked, lunging forward, claws out. The human didn't move. The device activated, projecting a hologram of Earth. Calm, quiet, peaceful. Then it shifted to Earth's hidden fleets. Massive black warships, silent, ancient, built for only one purpose: ending predators. "If you come again," the soldier whispered, "We won't let you run." And then he disappeared. The entire human task force vanished from sight, leaving the Vraxel fleet drifting like broken bones in the void. When they returned home, the Empire fell into chaos. Their warlords argued. Their scientists panicked. Their soldiers refused to launch again. But the worst blow came when an unknown broadcast echoed across the galaxy. Origin, unknown. Sender, unknown. But the voice was unmistakably human. "We did not hunt you for revenge," the voice said. "We hunted you for balance." There was a pause, heavy and sharp. "Do not force us to finish the hunt." No threat, no roar, no anger, just cold truth. That message replayed through the galaxy millions of times. Civilians trembled. Military fleets were rerouted. Even the mighty Council, who once looked down on Earth, erased their anti-human laws in panic. Across 10,000 worlds, species whispered the new law of survival. Never provoke humans. Never hunt humans. Never forget what humans did to the Vraxel. And on Eden 5, where the hunt began, human soldiers stood atop cliffs overlooking the forest, their armor reflecting the rising sun. They had not chased glory. They had not sought war. They had acted only because a predator forced their hand. As the commander looked out over the quiet land, he whispered, "They will think twice before hunting again." But deep inside, he knew something larger had begun. Humanity had not won a battle. Humanity had reshaped the structure of fear in the galaxy. The final hunt had begun, not to kill, not to destroy, but to teach the galaxy a truth older than any empire. The galaxy changed after Eden 5, changed in ways no empire had ever seen. It wasn't the kind of change that came from treaties or victory speeches or flags planted on broken planets. It was the kind of change that came from a single truth whispered across 10,000 worlds. A truth that slipped through shadows, sat inside war rooms, echoed through council chambers, and crawled into nightmares. That truth was simple: humans were not prey. And the moment the galaxy understood that, everything shifted. Trade routes that once banned Terran ships now begged for human escorts. Empires that mocked Earth now sent gifts, messages, apologies, anything to avoid provoking the species that taught the deadliest predators fear. And yet, humanity did not celebrate. They did not threaten. They did not expand. They simply went quiet again, returning to their worlds, fixing their homes, training their soldiers, preparing for a future the galaxy never wanted to imagine but now could never forget. Meanwhile, the Vraxel Empire collapsed under the weight of its own shame. Warlords fought in the streets. Entire broods questioned their traditions. Statues of fallen apex hunters were torn down. Elders demanded explanations no one could give. Every Vraxel child was raised with a new lesson: never hunt humans. But the deepest change came from Krailthun, the once mighty brood leader who had returned kneeling. The warrior who had never bowed to anyone before bowed to an idea: respect. He traveled across the empire, speaking to thousands of young warriors in trembling halls. "We hunted shadows," he said, "but humans, they hunted hearts." His voice cracked every time he said the word human, not from fear but from understanding. They fight with mind, not only muscle, with unity, not only claws, with memory, not only teeth. The warriors listened in silence. Real silence, not fear-driven silence, but respectful silence. For the first time, the predators learned humility. And far beyond their territory, in the heart of human space, a quiet meeting took place inside a glass room floating above Earth. Generals, commanders, scientists, and diplomats sat around a table, looking at recordings of the galaxy reacting to humanity's rise. Some looked proud. Some looked troubled. Some looked tired. The Terran commander, the same man who stood in the forest and stared into the eyes of the Vraxel leader, spoke softly. "We did not break them," he said. "We revealed them." A young diplomat asked the question everyone held inside their hearts. "Did we make the galaxy fear us too much?" The commander looked out the window at Earth, the blue and green planet humans always fought for. "Fear is not our goal," he whispered. "Understanding is." Then he turned back to the council. "They must know what happens when they attack us. But they must also know this: humans are not monsters. We hunt only when pushed. Those words echoed through the room like a soft thunder. Behind the glass, Earth rotated slowly, peaceful and beautiful. The home of the species the galaxy once mocked. A home the galaxy now respected. And on Eden 5, the forest where everything began had grown quiet again. Not the silence of death, but the silence of balance. Human rangers walked among the trees, checking traps, repairing drones, teaching new soldiers. They weren't preparing for war. They were preparing for the future. A future where fear would not be the first language between species. A future where the galaxy finally understood that humans did not seek domination. They sought peace, and they fought only when forced to. As the sun rose over the treetops, a young ranger approached the commander. "Sir," she said quietly, "do you think the Vraxel will return?" The commander took a long breath, watching the golden light break across the valley. "Maybe one day," he said. "Predators repeat their mistakes." The ranger nodded. "And if they do?" The commander smiled softly, not a smile of arrogance but a smile of certainty. "Then we'll remind them." He turned toward the forest, the air crisp and clean. "That humans do not run." He stepped forward. "That humans do not hide." Another step. "That humans do not fear shadows." And then, with the rising sun reflecting in his eyes, he finished softly. "And that humans always hunt back." The wind carried those words across the valley, up the mountains, through the trees, beyond Eden 5, and across the galaxy itself. A whisper, a truth, promise.